Mid-solo, Ace Frehley froze. He lowered his guitar. And he walked toward a grandmother standing in the middle of the crowd. No one had ever seen him do anything like that before. Portland, Oregon. November 1983. The Paramount Theatre. 2,000 people packed into a venue built for elegance but repurposed for volume. Ace Frehley was 3 songs into his set, playing to a crowd that had paid to see the Space Ace, the makeup, the smoke bombs, the guitar that shot rockets. They wanted the show. The spectacle. The legend. They got something else entirely. The band was deep into Rip It Out, one of Ace's signature solo tracks. The kind of song where his guitar became a voice, bending notes, sustaining feedback, creating sounds that seemed impossible from 6 strings and wood. Ace was in his element, eyes closed behind the silver star makeup, fingers moving across the fretboard with that deceptive casualness that made virtuosity look like breathing. The crowd was with him. Heads nodding. Fists pumping. That collective energy that happens when 2,000 strangers become one organism, all moving to the same rhythm. And then, in the middle of his solo, Ace stopped playing. Not a pause for dramatic effect. Not a breakdown in the song structure. He simply stopped. His hands lifted away from the strings. The guitar hung silent from its strap. The band kept going for exactly 2 more measures before the bassist noticed and cut out. Then the drummer. Then everyone. Silence dropped over the Paramount like a curtain. Ace was staring into the audience. Not at the front rows where the diehard fans pressed against the stage barrier. Not at the balcony where latecomers stood in the back. He was looking at the middle section, about 15 rows deep, slightly right of center, where an elderly woman stood among the seated crowd. She wasn't waving. Wasn't calling out. Just standing. Hands folded in front of her. Gray hair pulled back in a simple bun. A face lined with 70-some years of living. She wore a simple cardigan over a floral dress, the kind of outfit you'd see at a church potluck, not a rock concert. And she was looking directly at Ace Frehley. The house lights were down, but the stage lights were bright enough to see her clearly. The people seated around her were turning, looking at her, then at Ace, trying to understand what was happening. Ace lifted the guitar strap over his head. Set the instrument down on its stand with careful precision. And stepped to the front of the stage. "Hold the lights," he said quietly to someone in the wings. His voice, amplified by the stage microphones, carried through the venue. "Don't move the spots. Keep them where they are." Then he did something he'd never done in 20 years of performing. He walked off the stage. Down the steps. Into the audience. Ace didn't defend himself. He never did. To understand what happened next, you need to understand what had happened 3 days earlier. Ace Frehley was in a hotel room in Seattle. The tour was going well, sold-out shows, good crowds, reviews that acknowledged he was more than just the guy from Kiss. He'd spent years fighting that label, proving he was a serious musician, not just a costume and a gimmick. But the industry didn't make it easy. Interviewers asked about makeup before they asked about music. Magazine features focused on pyrotechnics instead of guitar technique. Even his own band sometimes felt like they were expected to be spectacle first, musician second. Ace didn't argue about it. Didn't give interviews defending his credibility. Didn't explain that beneath the silver star and the space suit was someone who'd been playing guitar since he was 13, who'd studied players from Les Paul to Jeff Beck, who could play jazz and blues as easily as hard rock. He just played. And let the playing speak. But that afternoon in Seattle, sitting in a hotel room watching afternoon television, he'd gotten a phone call that changed something. The voice on the other end was female, elderly, uncertain. Is this Ace Frehley? The guitar player?" "Yes, ma'am," Ace had said, confused. His manager handled calls. Fans didn't get his room number. "My name is Dorothy Brennan. I'm calling from Portland. I'm not sure if you remember, but 30 years ago, you gave my grandson a guitar lesson." Ace had been silent. 30 years ago he'd been barely more than a kid himself, playing clubs in the Bronx, teaching neighborhood kids for beer money and practice time. His name was Michael. Dorothy continued. Michael Brennan. You taught him for about 6 months in 1953, before you got busy with your band. He was 8 years old. You were so patient with him. Ace remembered. Vaguely. A skinny kid with oversized hands and an acoustic guitar that was too big for him. Earnest. Hardworking. I remember Michael, Ace said slowly. How is he? There was a long pause. Michael died in Vietnam. 1971. He was 26 years old. The hotel room had felt suddenly smaller. I'm so sorry, Ace had said, the words feeling inadequate. He took his guitar with him, Dorothy said, her voice steady but fragile. To Vietnam. He played for his unit. They said it kept morale up. They said he was good. She paused. He told me once that you were the reason he kept playing. That you made him believe he could be good at something. Ace had closed his eyes. Mrs. Brennan, I don't know what to say. I have tickets to your show in Portland tomorrow night. I bought them months ago. I wasn't sure I'd have the courage to go, but I wanted to see you play. I wanted to hear what Michael heard. Does that sound foolish? No, ma'am. It doesn't sound foolish at all. I probably won't come backstage or anything. I just wanted to be there. To say thank you, even if you never know I'm there. I'll know, Ace had said. What section are you sitting in? She told him. Orchestra section. Row P, seat 14. Subscribe and leave a comment, because some moments only make sense when we remember them together. Now, in the Paramount Theatre, Ace Frehley was walking up the aisle. Security started to move toward him, uncertain, but he waved them off. The crowd parted silently, people pulling their legs aside to let him through. He reached row P. Dorothy Brennan stood there, tears streaming down her face, hands still folded in front of her. Ace stopped in front of her. The stage lights were still on him, creating a cone of illumination in the darkened theater. Everyone in the venue was watching, but it felt private somehow. Sacred. Mrs. Brennan, Ace said quietly, though the microphones caught it. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry, she said, her voice shaking. I didn't mean to interrupt your show. When I saw you up there, I thought about Michael and I couldn't. Don't apologize. Ace reached into his jacket, the leather stage jacket covered in silver studs and space-themed patches, and pulled something out. A guitar pick. One of his signature picks, black with a silver star. Michael was a good kid, Ace said. And a good student. Better than I was as a teacher, probably. I was just a punk kid myself back then. He held out the pick. He deserved better than what he got. We all did back then. Dorothy took the pick with trembling hands. He would have loved this. Loved seeing you perform. He's here, Ace said simply. He's here because you're here. That's how it works. Then Ace did something that would be talked about for decades. He took Dorothy's hand and led her down the aisle, back toward the stage. The crowd watched in complete silence as this rock guitarist in makeup and leather helped an elderly woman in a floral dress navigate the steps and walk her to the side of the stage, where a stagehand brought a chair. You're going to watch from here, Ace said. Front row. Because Michael should have had a front row seat. Dorothy sat, clutching the guitar pick, tears still flowing. Ace walked back to center stage. Picked up his guitar. Adjusted the strap. Looked at his band. Who stood ready, who understood without being told that something significant had just happened. He turned to Dorothy, sitting in the shadow stage right. This one's for Michael Brennan, Ace said into the microphone. A good kid. A good guitar player. Gone too soon. What followed was not showmanship. Not spectacle. Not the performance people had paid to see. It was a 7-minute blues progression. Slow. Aching. Every note deliberate. Ace closed his eyes and played like he was having a conversation with someone who couldn't talk back. The guitar sang and mourned and celebrated and remembered. There were no pyrotechnics. No smoke. No rockets shooting from the guitar. Just a man playing for a woman who'd lost her grandson. For a kid who died in a jungle holding a guitar. For everyone who'd ever been reduced to a costume or a gimmick or a label when all they wanted was to be heard. Away from the spotlight, Ace made a choice no one expected. When the song ended, the Paramount Theatre erupted. But it wasn't the wild applause of a rock concert. It was something deeper. People standing. Some crying. The kind of ovation that acknowledges witnessing something real. Ace opened his eyes. Lowered the guitar. Looked at Dorothy, who was standing now, clapping with the pick still clutched in her palm. He nodded to her. She nodded back. The show continued. Ace played his hits. The crowd got their spectacle eventually. But everyone in that theater knew they'd seen something else first. Something that mattered more than smoke and lights. What followed silenced everyone in the room. After the show, Ace sat with Dorothy in an empty dressing room for 45 minutes. They talked about Michael. About the Bronx in the 1950s. About teaching and learning and how sometimes the smallest kindnesses echo across decades. She showed him a photo she'd brought. Young Michael, maybe 9 years old, holding that oversized acoustic guitar, grinning at the camera. "Can I keep this?" Ace asked. "Just for tonight. I'll send it back to you, I promise." Dorothy let him. That night, alone in his hotel room, Ace taped the photo to the inside of his guitar case. It stayed there for the rest of his career. Every time he opened that case, in studios, in arenas, in practice spaces, he saw that kid. The one he taught basic chords to for $5 a lesson. The one who died holding a guitar in Vietnam. The reminder that music wasn't about makeup or costumes or spectacle. It was about connection. About being present. About showing up for people even when, especially when, they can't show up for themselves anymore. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. 30 years later, in 2013, a music journalist asked Ace about the most memorable show of his career. Ace thought for a moment, then told the story of Dorothy Brennan and the Paramount Theatre. "Did it change how you perform?" the journalist asked. "No," Ace said. "It reminded me why I perform." The guitar pick Ace gave Dorothy that night is now in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, donated by her family after she passed away in 2009. The placard beside it reads, "For Michael Brennan, 1945 to 1971. From Ace Frehley. Portland, 1983. Some lessons last forever." Ace still doesn't talk much in interviews. Still doesn't explain himself. Still lets the playing do the talking. But people who were at the Paramount that night, they remember. They remember a rock star in silver makeup stopping a show to honor a grandmother and a kid who never got to grow old. They remember that real power isn't about how loud you play. It's about knowing when to stop playing and just listen. In the years that followed, other musicians heard the story. Some dismissed it as sentimental. Others understood it completely. Keith Richards once said in an interview, when asked about Ace Frehley's legacy, he knew the difference between being a star and being a musician. Stars perform. Musicians connect. Ace never returned to the Paramount Theatre. When asked why, he simply said, "Some rooms hold one perfect night. You don't go back and try to recreate it." But he never forgot row P, seat 14. In 1991, when Ace was going through a particularly difficult period, struggling with the industry, with expectations, with the weight of a legacy he never asked for, he opened his guitar case and looked at that photo of young Michael Brennan. The kid with the too big guitar and the hopeful smile. He played for 2 hours that night in an empty rehearsal space. No audience. No lights. No makeup. Just a man and a guitar, having a conversation with ghosts and memories and the quiet reminder that somewhere, decades ago, a $5 guitar lesson had meant something to someone. Dorothy Brennan's daughter reached out to Ace one final time, in 2009, to tell him her mother had passed peacefully. She'd been holding that guitar pick. Her last words, the daughter said, were about the night a rock star stopped his show and remembered her grandson. Ace sent flowers to the funeral. White roses. No card. No message. He didn't need to explain. He never did.